There is a lot going on this page, so bear with me here. You know what a function is. Parameters. Like I said, this is going to be focus. Parameters are, what does a function need in order for it to do its work? My wife, I'll use her example. She needs coffee in the morning and some other things, food, essentials, for her to just be cognitive available to do her work. And so many of us. I don't need coffee. I'm one of those type of people. But what does she need in order to get her job done? She needs coffee. She needs clothes. She needs food. She needs everything that you and I would normally want. A function's the same idea. What does it need in order for do its job of getting the hypotenuse in this particular example, like you've seen before? Okay. That's what we're going to use as parameters to pass in and hand the function actual values, the values that you see right here. I'm going to hand it in two values, value A and value B, in order for it to do its job. That's what a parameter is. Now, I'm going to revisit this table here in a moment, but there is terminology called formal parameters and actual parameters. So formal parameters is in the declaration or the definition of the function here. So this would be your formal parameters. The actual parameters are what is going to be, when you're doing the call, what values are you actually passing in, what I call actual, values that you're passing into the function. So just a heads up, you'll see this another time before. But that's what we're going to start doing, is worrying about literally passing in values into a function. And by the way, C++ makes that a little bit more interesting, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. Hang in there. Here is a full example. You can copy and paste this as a run. I'm going to leave you to your own devices on this one to answer the three questions. And I'll come back and support you and give you answers here in a moment. Don't go crazy. There's no curveballs in this one. So if you have to assume something, you're probably right. Let's just leave it at that. So have at it, and I'll come back and help you out with the answers here in a moment. Welcome back. How can you tell that a hypotenuse is a function over a procedure or a predicate function? Well, very simple. Float. Remember, there's three types. There's procedure, which just returns a void. The other one returns a Boolean. And the last one is just not those two. So float, string, arrays, integers, it's a whole bunch of gamut, and that's float for that one. So that one is a function. What data type will this function return? And that's going to be back to float again. Now, why do I say, are you sure? In C++, and by the way, this is different in other languages, is that if this happened to calculate, the hypotenuse ended up to be actually like straight up on an integer 6, for some reason the answer ended up as 6, it's still going to convert it over to a float, really because of the square root and how square root works out. You're going to return a float no matter what. So that 6 is going to end up as 6.0, and that's still float. So that's why I'm saying that. Could you have a hypotenuse that ends up as an integer? Yeah, but the square root value that's returned from that function is going to give it as a float, and then no matter what, this function is going to return it as a float as well. And as you know, 6.0 is still equal to 6. We didn't add any real data to it, so that's the good news. Last part. What variables are parameters? Now, remember, there's formal parameters and there's actual parameters. So this is almost a trick question, but that's okay. A lot of you are going to say, oh, that's the parameters right there, is the ones that are highlighted, at least in this one here. Okay, that's true. That is the formal parameters. Now, the actual parameters are really here, the side A and the side B, because we're going to go ahead and define them by the user, and then that's the actual parameters that we're going to pass into that function. So the last part is literally showing you that, hey, if I were to place literal values or variables, these two items are going to be physically passed into the function, and the order does matter. Also, the number of variables also matters too. Notice that getHypotenuse is supposed to accept two parameters, two values. What if I didn't? What if I send in 3? What if I send in 1? Your compiler is going to have a heyday with that, because look, it's saying, look, you are demanding 2 things to do your job. 2 integers to be exact. As long as it gets 2 integers, then this function can do its job, so you better give it 2 integers. So that's exactly the overall logistics of what's happening now. Now, by the way, last part. There is an equal sign there. I know it's half buried here. So again, the right-hand side is going to get done first. It's going to pass the values in. It's going to do its calculation, and then it's going to return that value. And this, again, this is the part that actually really becomes the value itself. So we have float answer equals, and then 8 and 6. I don't know what the hypotenuse for that. Hopefully it's coming up here. But anyway, then you have your answer is set to that particular value. So that's the overall logistics. Again, very similar to what we've done already. But again, we're just worried about passing parameters.